Welcome to Lecture Series 4. This week we're going to talk about learning and memory. And I got a question. Have you ever had a negative reaction to eating a particular type of food? Think about the next time you're offered that specific food. You're most likely to recall the previous negative experience, and you'll probably graciously decline to eat it. Whether the negative outcome was due to the food matters very little, as rightly or wrongly, the food was linked to something unpleasant. As such, learning is a process of acquiring new or modifying existing knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, or preferences. Or, as applied to consumer behavior, learning is the process of acquiring new information and knowledge about products and services for use in future situations. As consumers, we are constantly learning how the products we purchase perform. We try a new type of floor cleaner, and our hardwood floors look great. The next time we need to purchase a product in this category, we most likely rebuy the same brand. Or we see an ad for a product that promises to return your floors to like-new conditions. You try it and you're sorely disappointed in the result. The likelihood of repurchase closely approaches zero. In the previous example, learning was accomplished by direct means. A product was tried and the outcome noted. However, consumer learning can also come about through incremental or incidental means, such as when a brand name or logo is recognized, or we get a brand's jingle stuck in our head. Learning changes the way consumers think about and use products. The more consumers learn about a product category, the more likely they are to use new words and phrases to describe their consumption experiences, and the more likely they are to focus on product attributes that don't seem as important when they first enter into the product category. So, we can say that consumer learning is a change in behavior resulting from some interaction between a consumer and a stimulus. People learn in many ways, and the subject of learning has received extensive research in the areas of medicine, psychology, sociology, and education. From these studies, various theories of learning have emerged. Primary among these theories are classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and cognitive learning. Learning can happen immediately. For example, stick something metal into a wall socket and you quickly learn not to do that again. Or it could happen over time from repeated experiences. So let's take a look at classical conditioning. Classical conditioning focuses on creating associations between meaningful objects or ideas to elicit a desired response. The classic example is from the 1920s, with Ivan Pavlov would place food in front of a dog, which naturally made the dog salivate. Every time Pavlov fed the dog, he would also ring a bell. Eventually, the dog came to associate the bell with food and would salivate whenever the bell rang, even if food was not present. A similar example can be found in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, where the goblins used clankers on the dragon as it had been trained to expect pain whenever it heard the sound. Now, if we think about the image of Santa Claus, the image that we have in our head is kind of shown here. Well, where did this image come from? Actually, it came from Coke. Coke was one of the first to attach Santa Claus to its brand. To further explain classical conditioning, let's look at this example. Before the conditioning, in box 1 you can say, the food, which is an unconditioned stimulus, gets a response from the subject, or in this case a dog, in which he salivates and we get an unconditioned response. Before the conditioning also, a neutral stimulus such as a bell would be rung, but there would be no reaction from the dog, no conditioned response. However, in step 3, during conditioning, the bell and the food together gets a response, such as an unconditioned response, such as salivation from the dog. And then after conditioning, a bell would ring and the dog would salivate, which is the conditioned response. This basically looks at how things progress to where we created a link between the food and the dog's salivation. And then the food and the bell were connected, which also made the dog salivate. And then finally, just the bell was rung and the dog would salivate. Let's look at an example of classical conditioning in action with a scene from The Office.
I have to reboot again. Hey Dwight, do you want an Altoid?
What do you think?
Dwight, want an Altoid?
Okay.
Altoid?
Sure.
What are you doing? What?
I don't know. Well, my mouth tastes so bad all of a sudden.
Marketers use various stimuli to act as a bell, such as catchy music or a jingle, likable celebrities, cute animals, such as Geico's Gecko. They also use exciting sporting events as positive, unconditional stimuli, the food and Pavlov's experiments, to produce positive, unconditioned responses such as joy, happiness, and amusement, as in the dog salivating. They also craft their ads to connect their brands with pleasant memories. Let's look at how Corona used classical conditioning to connect its brand to the positive experience of a trip to the beach. If we look at this ad, we see 3 Corona bottles, the lime in the top of one of them. We see a beach scene. It's a very positive experience that we are putting in our heads. So let's look at the next one. Many adults think of a trip to the beach as a pleasant, joyful experience. The sand, the surf, and relaxation that comes with being away from work or school is very appealing. So the Corona ads sought to link those pleasant experiences to their beer. Again, this image or this ad basically shows 2 Corona bottles, a view of the beach. You see over on the side, the limes and the caps form the shape of a palm tree. Again, just giving that mental image. Here we have another example from the Corona campaign, and it follows the same format. We have just a single bottle this time, but we have a beautiful ocean view, the sand, we see a chair there most likely, and again, it just elicits some type of positive feelings in our brain. Here are a couple of more examples from Corona, but notice the switch. The ad on the left encourages you to unplug from work and relax, while the ad on the right moves the experience from the beach to another location, and in this example, a lake. In this last set of ads, Corona has also linked the beach effect to other locations, albeit happy locations, your backyard or the mountains. All of this that we've seen is basically an example of classical conditioning and how it's worked well for Corona. So how well has the Corona ads worked? Well, Corona is the #1 imported beer in the US and the 5th best-selling beer overall. It recently made Forbes' most valuable brand list, coming in at number 81 with a brand value of over $7.5 billion. So I would say that the classical conditioning that they've employed has worked very well for the company. Related to classical conditioning is the aspect of stimulus generalization, which refers to the tendency of stimuli similar to a conditioned stimulus to evoke similar conditioned responses. It's a big mouthful there, I understand. Pavlov reported that dogs sometimes salivated when they heard a noise that was similar to a bell, when in fact it wasn't. In marketing, we refer to this as the halo effect. One of the things that we notice is that good-looking people are thought to be more intelligent, more successful, and more popular. We are also treated better than our less attractive counterparts. This is the halo effect from a psychological perspective. However, the same effect holds true in marketing. Some products gain a built-in advantage just because of the name on the package. For example, mothers have trusted Johnson & Johnson baby products for over 100 years, starting with the company's baby powder. As trust in the brand name grew, J&J was able to introduce other products into their baby line, such as shampoo, lotions, and baby oil. This is the halo effect in marketing. Apple has also benefited from the halo effect thanks to the success of the iPod. As customers became accustomed to the quality and ease of use of the iPod, then they also began taking a look at the other products from the company, including their computers. Conditioning also has other impacts on our lives. For example, when we pay by credit card, oftentimes it hampers our perception of price, and it can condition us into spending more than we would like to when we use a credit card. One of the things that we found with research is that some researchers looked through the records of tips that waiters and waitresses received, and what they found is that those that paid by credit card, they left a much larger tip than those that were basically paying with cash. In another research study, they basically played the game Price is Right with some consumers. The respondents, or the subjects in the study, were shown products on a computer screen, and they were asked to estimate the price. In one group of respondents, a small MasterCard sign was placed beside the monitor, while in the other group, the sign was absent. Those in the first group that had the sign present, they estimated significantly higher prices than did those in the second group. So just the mere presence of a sign with a credit card logo had an impact on our willingness to buy a product. It's also impacted our willingness to make a donation to charity, even when the donation had to be made in cash. So just that logo, just the presence of a credit card logo can influence what we do. We've also found that consumers spend more and reach the decision to spend faster when credit card symbols are present compared to when those symbols are absent. So think about that the next time you go shopping. In thinking about Pavlov's work on classical conditioning, dogs were trained to salivate after hearing a bell. However, was this learning? What happens when we predict one event, but something different happens? Research shows that when this occurs, we are motivated to learn how to better predict the unexpected events. So if we put this into a consumer behavior context, we have learned that consumers often make predictions about a product's quality using a lot of different predictive cues, such as the brand name, the price, the warranty, store reputation, and other things. But when we're surprised, oftentimes we are geared and motivated to learn more, which can be very positive for marketers. Marketers understand the use of classical conditioning and turn around and try to find ways to generate stimuli that are going to have an effect that they are seeking out of consumers. Major companies use this through the use of family branding, such as Campbell's and General Electric. Now, if you think about General Electric, every product that they make at the consumer end has the GE name in the brand name of the product. GE refrigerators, GE ranges, GE light bulbs, all of them contain that GE name. Companies also use line extensions, which we've already discussed to some degree with the example with Johnson & Johnson's baby products. They can also use licensing, where companies will pay a royalty to use a popular brand name for their products. For example, some companies have licensed the iPod name for their accessory products, such as docking stations and other type of accessories for music players. Now, one of the others that has been very successful in this area, I guess his family's been very successful, is Bob Marley, the famous reggae singer who died in 1981. He still lives on through his music and the many products that carry his name. In addition to the products such as clothing and bags, the Marley name is also being used as a marijuana brand, given the singer's proclivity to smoking pot. So all of these things that, we're generating some type of connection, some type of stimulus to connect a feeling, a person, a brand to something else. As noted in your textbook, Procter & Gamble has begun opening Tide dry cleaners. And this basically suggests that the halo effect will be in play with this new venture. I posted a discussion question on Canvas regarding this. What do you think? Do you think this would be effective in terms of using the halo effect? In the next lecture, lecture 4.2, we will look at instrumental or operant conditioning.